Welcome to Nolan Knows. Now, let's start with the news. President Obama has made it clear that we, the United States, are not going to pay ISIS any ransom for kidnapping victims. It's the right decision to make. It's painful and it's tough, but you don't want to make it financially rewarding for ISIS to start kidnapping Americans. It's the right decision. Jon Stewart has announced that he is going to leave The Daily Show, and he has other career plans. I wonder if it could be hosting the NBC Nightly News. Puerto Rico, in an attempt to contain obesity, has decided that they just might want to fine parents of children who have put on too much weight. As frightening as the thought is of the government compelling parents to put their children on a treadmill and to make them lose weight, don't think it won't happen here in the United States, because they've already made noises about trying this. A man in Wisconsin stopped a robbery by using his taser. He didn't actually use the taser, he just flashed the taser and drove the assailant away, drove the thief away. Irony of ironies, he's being charged with a felony for possession of a weapon. I believe in the Second Amendment, and I believe he has the right to own and bear arms. I don't think you have to have a license to carry a gun. The Constitution doesn't demand I get a license to practice religion. It's a right. Tim Cook says that the Apple Watch will tap you out of your laziness. Apparently, if you're lethargic for too long, it will start sending signals to you through the watch, making you aware that it's time to get up and move. Hey, if it works, great. The hacking group Anonymous apparently went after hundreds of ISIS social media sites, their Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts. Well, at least they've got a plan. It's more than the president has. Perhaps they should get hired by the administration to go after ISIS. It's kind of a double-edged sword, though. You don't want people who aren't accountable hacking websites willy-nilly. Great, they're going after ISIS. Not so great if they go after you. In Chicago, there is a little league team called the Jackie Robinson West League, and they had a terrific season. The reason they had such a terrific season is because they expanded their geographic pool of potential baseball players. And the net result was they became champions, got a U.S. title, all kinds of accolades. Well, now it turns out that they've been caught. It's not the kids that did something wrong. It's actually the people who run the team that did something wrong. They're the ones that cheated. Now the parents are all upset because these kids are losing their trophy and all of the accolades that come with it. It's a teachable moment, kids. Cheating is wrong, and cheaters don't prosper. It's time now for the Squirrel of the Week. The Squirrel of the Week inevitably has to be Brian Williams. He alleged that he was on a helicopter that was shot down in Iraq, when in fact he wasn't on a helicopter that was shot down. And when he apologized, he said, well, I was on a helicopter following the helicopter that was shot down. And that conjures up an image of, two helicopters coming in. No, he was a good hour, 2 hours behind the other helicopter. The New York Times tried to defend Brian Williams. They said, well, you can't call him a liar. He could have malleable memory. That's where you change the details, because memories are, famously inaccurate. In crimes, when they have a live witness, chances are, oftentimes anyway, they aren't really deadly accurate. We tend to move things around a little bit in our minds. Well, I can see that in a crime scene. Was he 5'7"? Well, he was 6'2". Or was he narrow, thin, fat, whatever? You might make those kinds of adjustments to your memory. But being on a helicopter that was shot down? No, that's not malleable memory, but it doesn't matter. If it was malleable memory or the guy's just a prevaricating news anchor, in either case, his credibility is shot down. In either case, I can't trust him to deliver the news to me, because it might be his malleable memory changing the facts, or it might be he's just exaggerating, making himself part of the story, and lying to me. In either case, the guy's a great entertainer. I've seen him on Saturday Night Live. I've seen him on other evening talk shows. Maybe he could replace Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. That might not be a bad place for him. He's a good entertainer, but he's never ever going to be a trustworthy and good anchor. And now it's time for the story of the week. Story of the week is that President Obama has asked for new war powers, wants to go after ISIS. You know, there is this War Powers Act that makes Congress declare war. And in my view of how war is declared, they make the decision. The president goes out as the leader, addresses Congress, tells them why we have to go to war. They agree or disagree, they hold a vote. I can hold them accountable for their vote. And once the declaration of war is made, all hell breaks loose. And what I mean by all hell breaks loose is, after that, the president and the generals, the chiefs of staff, work out a plan, a strategy, and they go after the bad guys. They kick ass, they take names, and they come home. There are no rules of engagement. We don't tell a soldier you can't shoot the bad guy because he's hiding in a mosque or he's hiding behind a skirt. You're going to have some collateral damage, as they say. And the U.S. military needs to win, and in order to do that, we need to turn them loose. What President Obama is trying to do is thread the needle. He's trying to be aggressive enough to get Republicans to vote, but not too aggressive because he doesn't want to lose Democrat support. And so he's going right down the middle, and he's guaranteed to have a tough time. This is the problem when you have ineffective leadership. He wouldn't have this tough time if he had convictions, knew what he wanted to do, went to Congress, addressed the Congress, and said, here's where we have to go. We have to declare war. The president's lack of leadership constantly gets in his way, and this is just another case of it. And now it's time for my favorite topic, Obama mania. I listened to the president, and I was sort of surprised when he was talking about the biggest threats to the country. He's talking as though somehow climate change is the be-all and end-all for us to be afraid of. I found that hard to believe when I thought about the police officer in New York City who was chased by a radical Islamist carrying a hatchet. I wondered about whether or not climate change is really that big a deal when I thought about that woman in Oklahoma who was beheaded by an Islamist. I thought about it when they were in Canada and they shot that unarmed soldier and went after the parliament. And I thought, well, I don't think global warming is that big a deal. I don't know of one person. I can't think of a single person who has died because of global warming. You could ask the Peshmerga over in Iraq. They might tell you that global warming isn't their biggest enemy either. It's amazing how we seem to stick to this argument about global warming and how serious it must be when it hasn't led to a single death, not one. And they keep telling us, well, the science has been settled. But the science hasn't been settled. There are climatologists all over the place who are screaming that CO2 and global warming, man-made global warming, are not a threat. They aren't killing people. They aren't the reason for the ice changes in the Antarctic, in the Arctic. And by the way, there is plenty of evidence that we have some global cooling going on. For 18 plus years, satellite data show no temperature change. In fact, they show a slight cooling. Give it up. Global warming isn't the number one threat. I would argue terrorism is the number one threat. And if it's not, then surely it must be ignorance about terrorism that is the number one threat.